Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Thanks for being here today. We'll get started with, what's this, session 5 of bargaining between the district and the PBA. We have received your counter proposals that Ms. Mendoza sent yesterday evening. And I'll turn it over to PBA if you'd like to walk through your proposals and discuss. Okay. Sure, we could run through intros real quick. My name is Tim Kubrick. I'm Chief of Human Resources.
Mark Mitchell, Director in HR. Good morning.
Jean Marie Middleton, Office of General Counsel.
V. Danielle Williams, Office of General Counsel.
Diomedes Cruz, Labor Relations.
Diane Wyatt, Director of HR.
Sarah Mooney, Chief of Police.
Vanessa Snow, Deputy Chief.
Mike White, Assistant Chief.
Nick Scopolitas, Major, Support Service.
Carol Sessions, Sergeant, School Police.
Jerry Novella, Officer.
Al Brad, Officer, School Police.
Officer Laporte, PBA.
Officer Lynch, PBA.
All right, well, we'll go back to, we have your proposals. Thank you for sharing them. If somebody, I'm not sure without Ms. Mendoza here, who would like to take the lead on presenting your proposals and discussing them.
Okay, so, so we looked at your proposal. We also compared it to the CTA's years of experience pay. And based on those two, we came up with a PBA experience pay credit, which is kind of spread out more of in 5-year increments as opposed to yearly.
Are we talking about the page that says PBA experience pay credit counteroffer 1?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So the 2.5% increases based on the rate of pay for every 5 years of sworn experience, and this would apply to both inside and outside experience. Because an experience pay, we have someone coming from another agency with 10 years experience, someone within the school district as a police officer for 10 years, it's hard to say that they don't have experience,
Right, and I don't know if I was clear then on the last session when I said that those who have been with us for those years have received raises along the way as employees of the district. So and if you look at their salaries, if you look at those who are at the top end of your schedule, it's going to be those who have been with us for the longest amount of time.
Right, and
I think we shared those salaries with you, so I think you'd be able to tell that in there where, we're pushed a little bit, pushed back a little bit on giving it to people who have been here their whole career because they have received raises over that same period of time. So
right,
that's our position on that.
And I agree with that because the teachers also who have been here for years have received raises all the time as well. So we're just looking to be on par with that, not asking for anything unusual.
Okay. Is this inclusive of the raise that was offered this year?
Yes.
So this is,
Yeah, so we're not disputing your 4% offer. This is just another version of the experience pay that you offered.
So let's just say that somebody has 20 years of experience this year with the base salary increase that we've proposed of 4%. Would that be plus 12.5% once verified?
That would be, we're looking for no cap on the amount that they're about to receive, because I believe you guys put a 7.5% cap on the experience pay. So if someone who's entitled to 8 and 4, they would only get 7.5. In this case, they'd be entitled to both with no cap.
So it's both. So you'd be saying that somebody with 20 or more years of experience, inside or out, would be getting a 16.5% raise?
Yes, and a one-time, and on the second year, we would take whatever you offer the teachers.
With that, if we're going down that road, I'm just going to say right off the bat that's just not something we're even close to considering. A 16.5% raise is just not something we're prepared to do. I'd be more inclined to just withdraw our offer on the prior experience. We introduced that because for years we've heard from the PBA that we're difficult to recruit other officers to here. That helps that. We, for the past few years, have introduced many different incentives to make this agency much more competitive. But this is, 16.5% raise is, it's just,
Well, it
it's just
certainly
nowhere near.
helps the compression issue.
I'm not really that aware of any
It's also a
compression issue.
counteroffer too, so, it's just
I
our first
understand, but
counteroffer into
that's,
it.
I'm willing to entertain some minor tweaks to what we've adjusted or what we presented, but keep in mind that we've been working on that for 2 years now as a recommendation. So we've worked through it pretty thoroughly, and it makes sense. And with that, it also is something where we've made sure that those officers who are in here, who have been with us for 10 years, and somebody walks in from the outside, that outside person is not going to come in more than our current officer. We've looked at the base salaries of our officers, our sergeants, and they are pretty high, those who have been with us for a long time. So would we possibly consider can I bring it back to the team to say, can we look at inside too? Yeah, we could possibly do that. But I think we'd fall back more closely to what we proposed, as at least thinking like this is our first year of introducing something like this. In future years, we can sort of see how this plays out and see has it really helped us? Has it done what we were intending it to do, which is help recruit from some other agencies? And if it doesn't and some minor tweaks need to be made, we can always look at that. But in the first year, this is just something that I know is very far from where we are.
But what we do is, we bring your offer back to the membership, and we're representing the membership who this offer is in tune to what they're thinking. Okay,
It's a counteroffer.
We could always say,
I understand going back
We're not
and
going to
forth,
come in and same thing, we can't come in at bare minimum and just accept the first thing too. If we don't agree. We did a
It's a
survey
good
also.
deal, you can.
Of course you can,
Right.
of course you can, but we did a survey with our members too, and I will tell you, there wasn't a whole lot of agreement with it. I'm not saying it wasn't a good offer, it was a good offer, but we have to put it before our members as well.
I understand, I
And
get
we're
it.
not trying to be difficult, but all we can do is come back with something, and then hopefully we're gonna meet somewhere down the line. This is what we kind of came up with just for a quick draft, it's only been a week. So it's,
Understood.
you could say yes, no, or counteroffer. That's it, right?
And
So-
the one thing I am going to say that everybody was not agreeing with is, if you give this to outside people coming in, you have to also compensate the people that have been here.
And our offer did do that. To a more limited extent than what you proposed, but it did. There would be a lot of your officers who would receive, if based on our proposals and of at least 7.5% and 8% if we got rid of the attendance supplement or the performance pay supplements.
Those coming in under what we've outlined would come in below.
Sorry about that. It's designed so that people coming in with those experience credits would come in significantly below where their equivalent in-house person would be, because the equivalent in-house person has gotten a higher level increase, as Mr. Kubrick stated, during those years. Let's say it was 7 years or so forth. So that person getting 7 years credit on the outside would be coming in significantly below. And if I'm one of the membership, that's not readily apparent from looking at the documents, but that is a point that we have to make.
Chief?
I just wanted to clarify, because I think we misinterpreted what you just said. That I think she's saying that, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the membership was opposed to not including those that only have experience in the district.
Right, and
As our
that's something
initial-
that
as
I
our
said I
initial.
could bring
Okay.
something like that back. I hear you, and that's something that we've talked about. I would have to bring that back to my CFO to see if that's something we'd be willing to do. And that's some movement I can, I could swallow. I know I couldn't bring this back, but I get it, it's your first counter, and we'll work through that. So if we want to move on to the next item, unless anybody has any other questions on this.
Okay. Where's the next item? Is that it there? Is that it there? Yeah, this is just.
I don't see it.
What are you looking for?
The next item, you have it?
I'm sorry, you'll have to bear with me because I
It's
just
okay.
picked this up right before the meeting.
Oh, I
so-
understand, I understand.
I know she had some language that she changed. You have that.
I have it. You can give it to him. I'm trying to think if I have it. Let me see.
Chief, just to confirm I know we talked about the calendar real quick. I don't want, somebody had asked me yesterday, referenced the Juneteenth and us working the following day. If I'm not mistaken, did we speak about that so that they can have a complete week off the following week? Is that why we did it that way, make it work on Friday?
I don't think did we submit the final? I thought we were going
We
to we were
did.
going to talk through that.
Chief,
Once-
the June calendar was
Was
done last
Last
bargaining
year,
session.
that's what I thought.
Right.
Okay.
So
That's- So the only- I'm only
whatever we
asking for
have.
training purposes, was the person who asked me for setting up training, yes, okay. And I think we did that, so we had a
And I-
complete week off.
And maybe if we
Alright.
want to just jump into that, the calendar, I see some new language about bargaining the calendar. Now, for years, we've talked about the calendar because there are A and B squads, right? And with July of this year, their
Policy department, just simple
proposed
stuff.
calendar does not include a B squad. So that's something I know you guys have wanted to get rid of for a long time. Chief is, with the increase in number of officers on a 12-month schedule, we don't need the A and B squad anymore, so we just have a squad, A squad, right? Who's your 206 duty day employees who have to finish out their duty days for the school year, right? Or the fiscal year, you could say. So I'm not really sure what going forward we'd even need to bargain. I think the collaboration is centered around, well, how we, handle the A and B and when we schedule them and stuff like that. But overall, the chief does have management right to schedule officers as she sees fit. And I'm just not sure where we would be even going with that. The 12-month officers, it's clear in the contract that they work the schedule, the calendar that's designed for all 12-month employees in the district. So it's already known that's what they work. With A squad, they'll just be working to finish out their duty days.
I think we want to keep it on there, just so we don't get back to where we were, so we don't get back to where we were before and fighting over A and B squads, how we're going now, doing this same thing where we offered the A-B squads to help the department out, and then when we tried to get it back, then it was kind of a fight.
I get it, I get that.
So I think that's kind of one of the reasons we want to leave it on there. This way, we can come to an agreement like we did the last time, and hopefully, we can work through that. We spoke on the calendar during our meetings with the chief, and I think we came to a very good understanding that it's not going to be an issue. We just want to be on the same page, and don't want to have to sit in here and argue if somebody decides they want to change something at the last minute.
Right.
We don't want to go back to A and B squads just because, okay, we don't have enough people. Okay, we're going to go back if we can do it, obviously, or if it's going to hinder the department, we would do it, but not just to go back to save overtime or to make it easier for scheduling purposes.
Well, all right.
Manpower purpose is a different story.
So going to A, B squad, I get that, right? But there are times where the chief may schedule certain people to avoid overtime.
That's a different story, though. We've talked about that before, again. But we would still just rather have it in, we're not gonna have any issues again, but we would just rather be able to, instead of being, this is how it's gonna be regardless. If it is not department needed, then there really is no reason to switch it around. We talked about the day switching Fridays and Mondays during the thing. A lot of our guys, we're trying to get their feel on this too, because that's who it's really going to affect. And if it doesn't affect the department's operations, then there's really no reason to switch to it.
Right, I think we just might have some minor.
I think we're good with it. I mean, that's us. We just wanted to be able to negotiate it. And I think with we confirmed on, prior to this with, we have to work 80 hours 1 month and 72 hours in July. Am I correct? And
defer to
before,
Wade.
it was 80 and 72. It comes out to, that's the way it was for years. I know as long as I've been here.
It really depends on how the days fall during the year. The last year and this year, they actually end up with 80 hours in June. July is the new fiscal year starting. 2 years before that, you're right, we're at 72 hours. So it just, how the days fall, building out the 206 throughout the school year is what we end up at in June. Last year and this coming year, June, you'll have 80 hours. July is a new fiscal year, so you start off 80 hours right there.
And I think it's just another way of us, both sides, being able to keep an eye on, make sure, double checking all the work that's being
Yeah.
put into it.
I
I don't
would-
think there's really any reason not to be able to negotiate if it's, other than, it hasn't been an issue in the last probably almost 3 years, really, with the calendar. Yes, it's been a lot of time consuming, but I think both sides probably made it more than it needed to be. So I don't really see it being that big of an issue just to make sure that we keep track on the days, both
I
sides.
guess where I'm leaning is just that, when you put language in, language is hard and usually indisputable. It should be very clear on what the expectation is. And when we use the term negotiate the contract, when we're moving away from the issue that we're having, I feel like it's more like our goal should be to collaborate with at least the reps, between the chief when setting the schedule and provide time for input. That makes sense to me, but at some point, like negotiating are we gonna go to impasse because we have to run this day as a work day? I mean, that just seems, I'm not sure I understand, going that far.
So for
with
years,
it.
we never had, prior to even my getting on the board, we never worried about an A-B schedule. The biggest problem was always the June and July part of the calendar, and that was the 80-72. That's how it was always explained to me. And I think that's what brought us to where we are adamant about it, because then we did switch over to the A and B, and then we tried to get it back just to the A, and we had to, pull teeth, and we were never allowed to go back to it.
Well, the chief has made it happen, the draft that I've seen, so, for
And this
July,
is 3
right.
years later, though.
Yeah, no, I get it. So
That's why we're looking, and for 3 years, we didn't give the chief a hard time on keeping the AB. That was never been an issue for any of us.
Okay.
That's just I think why take it out if it's not hurting anything right now? And if we could settle it amongst ourselves, then I think which has been pretty much the case for at least the last 3 years.
All right.
If we're leaving any language in about the calendar, I would rather that we're not discussing it in January. We should be having the schedule for the full year if we're going to one shift, that you guys should know when we start the fiscal year, when you're working in July and when you're working the following June. So you can schedule. That's it.
Very reasonable.
we'll have some language, a counter proposal on that I think will be very reasonable.
Which one will we next?
Okay, so extra duty and off-duty employment. There's just some language that our attorney changed just for wording purposes, like instead of School District Palm Beach County PD, just department, the word which instead of that, just a lot of one-word, two-word changes in that whole purpose part of the extra duty employment. Definitions, same thing. The department may.
What article are we looking at? Are we
extra
at
duty.
1711?
210.
210.
Policy 210.
Oh, policy.
Yeah, policy.
I don't think I have policies, no. I'm going to defer to Chief on these.
Yeah, I think you're looking at our changes. If you're looking at the red line
the red
version, that's
line
us.
was-
The only
I think
thing
the
the only
yellow-
thing that you brought was yellow, is the highlighted in
Oh,
yellow is
okay,
the only
gotcha.
changes that the union was suggesting. So there's only two in each, there's one in each of the policies. Everything else is our language.
You have that stuff. Yeah, and also, manpower is an issue. I know we have an officer in every school. We are in compliance with the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas Act requirements, but not necessarily the recommendations. Like, for example, Park Vista High School, which has over 4,000 students.
No, they don't.
Well, they have
They do
3,000
not. They have
change?
about 3,000.
Okay. So they should, Marjorie Stoneman Douglas says that it should have one officer for the first 1,000 students, and as a recommendation for every additional 1,000, another officer. So that school should have 3 officers assigned to that school. Okay, and not only that, we have an emergency service unit that should be mobile. They're all assigned to schools. We have a detective squad that's assigned to schools. We have sergeants, lieutenants covering schools in times of absences. We have 20 or so contracted out officers from other departments as backup covering schools. So there is a recruitment issue as well. So when we throw these numbers at you, it's to help with recruitment and the current manpower.
I'm confused as to where we're at
Go ahead.
on this stuff. Is this going back to the pay scale?
Yeah, well, it's just I know what we said last time when we were at the last meeting is that everything's covered and everything's fine. So I was just hitting on that point where, we hired 34 officers in 2024 and 23 had separated from the job since then. And from what I understand, and maybe I'm wrong, we have 15 officers currently have applications in to other departments, including 6 with the sheriff's office. So this is, the salary is an important topic, is really what I'm getting at.
We agree with that.
Okay.
We've made, some real significant strides the past few years, and we don't disagree that salary matters. We know that's a very important thing. That's also why we're trying to, divert some of the money from the stipends this year that there's supplements that are offered to base pay, because the more we increase by base pay, the better, we'll be able to recruit, get people in the door. So we don't disagree with that at all. I will say, though, we've talked a lot about numbers over the past, few years and in 2022, there was a problem with turnover, right? We had 49 officers leave that year. I'm looking at the data right now, 49 officers left. The following year in 2023, 30. The following year, 18. Next year, 12. So there is some turnover. I think that exists in every police department, in Florida, in the United States. It just is. And, Chief has gone to, explain that a lot of the officers that we had hired over the years were on their second, career, right? They've already retired from somewhere and came in, and they don't necessarily have to work 20 years or 25 years to retire again or something like that. It was just, I'm going to come in and maybe hang in there for 10 years or something like that. So, you know, some of those that have left us, some of the issues with staffing are just because that's what they plan to give us in the first place. But we are on board with, you know, salary being competitive. We believe we are. We've offered, you know, every officer has a car. We do believe that we have a unique offer that a lot of other agencies can't offer, which is your hours, your schedule, and the meaningful work that we do in our schools, where police officers truly can be the role model that they should be for our students. And you know, I think, so I really do think that we offer one of the best police jobs there is. So I know recruiting is hard, but I think Chief's done a pretty good job, and I know you collaborate on that too and help get people in the door, so.
I mean, yeah, I mean, look at 268 applications last year, that's a lot.
Correct, and we think that, you know, and we're continuously trying to add things to that, like this year with our external experience. So right now, trying to pull somebody who's, you know, maybe towards the beginning of their career or 10 years into their career from another agency, it's very difficult if you're saying, well, you're going to come to our base salary. So that's why we're cracking that door on prior experience, knowing that we do offer that for some other employee groups, and we wanted to do that for our officers. We think it will help with recruitment from other agencies, and that's why we proposed that.
Yeah, 9.5 out of 10 always ask, what's your step? You know, we're not asking for a step, but I'm just saying that's the default question right off the bat, so that is part of the challenge.
And that goes back to what we were talking about with the top out last week, that I couldn't figure out what I was trying to say. So when I was talking about the top out on that, we were talking about with the step plan previously. And you go to every other agency, and we're talking about getting topped out. Most people getting topped out at other agencies between 8 and 12 years. And they may stay at that top out for 3 or 4 years because the top out pay is not going up, and they're just because the departments aren't moving the top out pay up, because there is a top out and it is attainable. So when you're making more money within 8 years versus 15, 16 years to ever see that top out, what you were ever going to see, when you have a guaranteed that you know you're going to be at that top out in 8 years, that's why being at top out is not a bad thing.
Okay.
That's why we were referring to on that. With this plan here is also, maybe it's something we need to look at, maybe another idea of a longevity plan versus this here, like a permanent longevity where you're getting like other agencies do. I presented to us the last year, 2 years, I think it was, with a plan that would, at 5 years here, you get 2.5%, and then every year thereafter, it's 0.5%, up to 20 years, and you get 10%. It's just another thing. When we start comparing ourselves to other agencies, we're forgetting that, yes, at the beginning, it's we all look great, but it's in between that's where is kind of bogging us down a little bit. Not saying that the pay starting out isn't good, it is good. Nobody here is going to complain about that. But when you have all these other things, the COLAs, the step plan, the longevities, that's where we start losing balance with the other agencies. So, and I think that's kind of what when we seen your plan, which wasn't bad, even though I don't believe the first 8 years even needed to be on that thing, because it did nothing for the officers.
It does for external.
For external, yes. Well, it does, but it doesn't, because.
But what I'm saying is, the plan is to put this out there so that somebody who comes from an agency and has 2 years, well, they start somewhere above the base. So it does have to be there. So that new hires know coming in, this is what I get if I have 5 years of experience. I get this percentage above the min. That's why that's in there.
Okay. So we're just trying to try to come to a happy median and with something else to add into the middle of that. We don't have to be $10,000 like we're trying to get something that we can use as other departments use in the middle there. We go stagnant after a couple of years here until you get to your next pay raise. Or you don't have the COLA, you're not jumping like the other agencies are. And that's where I think we're lacking off, because when we start comparing to other agencies and what they're making, we can't say, well, we got anything additional that you're gonna be making. We do have the career ladder, which is is good also, but it doesn't match what other agencies are making. So our young guys are still staying behind what another agency would be able to offer them. And that's, yes, we are recruiting issues sometimes, but we also have retention issues. It may not be at what it was 4 years ago or 3 years ago, but it's definitely still there, and it's happening daily. I mean, monthly, we are losing people. It is just, we're losing people to retirement, but we're also losing people, I believe, as Officer LaPaw said, there may be 16 applicants, and maybe that's a bad number. That's what we heard out there. So there is interest in going to other agencies, and it's not because of the starting pay.
Understood.
Can you hear me?
Push the button.
Red means on. Yeah, there you
Can you hear me?
go. No,
turned it on.
there, now it's on.
I think where he's going with that is he's talking about having a step plan. And as a recruiter for Palm Beach County and South Florida for the last 15, 20 years, he's basically saying where we would be, we probably start off well as far as the agency with the beginning of everybody else's, every other agency step going in with base salary. But over a period of 8 to 10 years, it'll be a big difference between where we are in other agencies. I think that's where he's going with that. So that might be something,
Well, that's something we
along the line you might want to deal with later as far as retention. I think that's what he's saying, because you're going to have to compete with the other agencies at some point to keep them here. I think that's where he's going with this step plan.
Understood.
Something to consider later.
I think that's something we continuously look, every year. We can't solve every problem each year, right? But we've tried to really knock a bunch of our issues off, when Chief came in, and I think we keep doing that every single year, getting a little bit better. So we will gladly take a look at that to see if, how it looks compared to other agencies. But again, just not all at once.
I know we're a little bit all over the place here, but we all just got this paperwork. So going back to the extended time, as I believe what the chief was referring to, and that's in where there was a highlighted was for the morning and aftercare hours, the 3-hour minimum. Is that where we were having an issue on the wording?
The only thing that I believe that was recommended to add was morning and aftercare hours, but my contention would be is any time that you just get held over, it's not an automatic 3-hour minimum, because you may be held over for an hour, so to add that language to me doesn't make any sense.
Okay. I think my concern is if you don't put it for, I'm not disagreeing with you on that, but I think if we don't have it in there, the problem is if I have to have another officer come to the school because I can't stay that 3 hours or 2 hours aftercare or 1 hour aftercare, how do we arrange that where?
If they're already working, it would be the same thing. Just because they change sites, it would still be consistent and contiguous with their workday. So it doesn't really matter where you're at. You may go across the street to work aftercare after school, but if you get off at 3:30 and you start aftercare at 3:30 at the school across the street, it's still just a continuation of your day.
I agree, but so say a guy's got to drive a half hour to get there, you know what I mean? So they're not going to be able to fill that void anyway, and if they want him to stay for that time, I just think there's got to be something locked in where personally, I think the officer should be working the aftercare or whatever, the 2 hours, 1 hour, but I just don't, if we had to bring somebody else in to work that for some reason.
Well, the other thing is-
I think we're gonna run into an issue.
Also, at this point, we're not mandated to have coverage at the
Correct.
aftercare, so it's not a mandate. So if it goes uncovered, then we may cover it with the Charlie shift or a Bravo shift to just swing by. So I don't want to get hung up on, a 15-minute travel or whatever. It's because we may just not have an officer there.
Okay.
And it will come back to charging that school extra time that we probably shouldn't be charging them.
Should be one more, I believe, right?
Which one did you need, the extra duty?
I can actually go to that if you want, since I have it in front of me. So
The
it had to
extra
do with,
That's the extra 3-hour.
it has to do with leave in the request. It's on page 2A.
The 3-hour minimum too.
The 3-hour minimum was on, which one are you looking at?
The ones, if you go off-site to work at another school.
I didn't see
Should
the
be-
yellow on that. What number
Yeah,
is
she
that?
put it, was it that one? I don't know. I don't have a copy of it. Hold on. Let me see this one. Yeah, it's the leave one. Yeah, it was just the language on it because it wasn't in.
It was just the language on the 3-hour minimum, for like,
The one we were talking about, with
The
the
on the
principals and-
extended time?
no, like if they go to a baseball game and the baseball game is canceled while they're there, to get the 3-hour minimum, it has to be in the language, because, I guess officers been challenged on that, whether or not they have to pay for the 3-hour minimum.
If it's less than 24-hour notice.
That's in there. That's in, that should be in there. The other one
That's
was
in the actual contract, not in the
Right.
policy, though.
Yeah.
But it's only on their lease. So I think the contiguous work is what we're looking for. So if it's contiguous work, it's not the 3-hour minimum that you're looking for.
Correct.
It's, if you go to another detail, I think there's a confusion between some of the middle schools and the elementary schools who don't understand that it's a 3-hour minimum. So if I have to come to your school at 6 o'clock at night, I've been off work since 3 o'clock, I'm not coming to your school for an hour to work the detail. You want a detail officer, you're gonna have to pay the 3 hours.
And we had agreed last
Yeah,
year
yeah,
about
we
it,
did agree-
but
oh.
never, it was
just
put in
need to
here.
change the
Just wasn't in the,
Yeah.
We'll have to meet on that one.
Okay.
because you're not gonna find somebody that's gonna come in for the hours.
got
So
you.
that's kind of where it is.
But y'all are
That's-
getting
that's a
paid 3
standard
hours
in the
now on it,
industry.
correct?
Well,
It's
there's
just not
been some,
written.
there's been a couple of questions on it. I don't know how many, but there has been brought to our attention. And we're trying to work amongst
Okay.
the schools and the officer at the schools and in the schools, so they come to the agreement. But that's why we think we need to see it in writing,
needs to be
because
in
they're
writing.
not understanding it. All schools
Talk about
aren't.
it.
Okay. Next policy, that what you've highlighted or was the first line supervisor will consult with the zone lieutenant and area commander for approval, notifying the employee if the leave request is approved or denied within 1 business day. I'm not sure if that was already there. I'm thinking that it was. Chief.
The initial was the first line supervisor part, and I think that was highlighted again in the recommendations. To me,
I think
that.
Katie's only concern was she didn't
The
want to jump the
timeline?
chain of command. Was the main issue, and then how long it
Well,
takes them
they
to
can
get back.
consult, that's going to be, that's an operations thing.
Yes.
But the sergeant, in reality, can't make the decision. So it's up to the captain to do it, and that's why we're putting them in instead of the, doesn't mean that we're going to not let the sergeant be involved in the conversation. But ultimately, it's going to be the captain's decision to approve it, and they're the ones that are going to be held to the fire on the timeline.
Correct, and I think the return response was more of an issue, just to be in a reasonable amount of time, so.
We'll look at that. I don't, the idea of the first line supervisor consulting through the chain, that's something that we're doing anyway. So it's not, I don't think it necessarily needs to be in here. Because I don't have a problem with an officer getting directly with the captain if it's something that they have to do and they've got to do it more timely. I'm trying to eliminate the longer-term timelines in between there. Wow. Welcome, Ms. Frederick.
Chief, I think it just needs to be more clear on our side with our people that it doesn't have to.
That's fine.
There's been some challenge with that before. With
We'll clarify that.
Supervisors saying they weren't told about it.
Right, and I think at this point, the processes with telestaff is going to eliminate that. That's what we're trying to do, is to hold people accountable on the entries and making sure that they're paying attention to the schedule.
I just CC my supervisor, my sergeant, and
Okay.
then send it to my captain.
Either way, right.
She said she's not.
Same thing.
All right.
No. Do it anyway.
Chief, is that the only other ones? I don't see.
Yeah, I think those were the only two things that were highlighted.
Next calendar day, unless, is what was
I'm
highlighted.
I'm going to change, you know what? No, that had to do with the overtime one. There was something in there about if somebody called out sick and being able to work. I think I put that, or is it in that one too? Hang on.
Was it family sick working
It was
overtime?
that one. It's page 5 of 18, where the question was, an employee who uses sick leave to miss an entire scheduled workday shall not work any extracurricular school functions, lease, or mutual aid details until the next full workday, unless otherwise approved by the chief of police.
That's
They
something we-
wanted to keep calendar day as opposed to full workday. That was the
We
rebuttal on
discussed that
I think
2,
we
3
did
years
discuss
ago.
it before, too.
I thought we had that where we wanted
Thought
it.
we had that where we wanted it to, but it's not in the contract.
But this
Doesn't
is,
need to go in the contract,
no,
really.
this is policy-wise. I wasn't privy to it being worked out 3 years ago. So calendar day is what the preference is as opposed to full workday?
I'd say whatever it is what it was worked out to. We all met, we brought that, we did, I think, an impact bargaining session with PBA. It was probably my first month on the job or something like that. So
We'll go back if you can.
wherever it was, wherever we landed on it, I think we were good with it. I haven't heard
I
that
think,
be an issue.
but it's not, I think what we agreed upon, if we had to go, instead of taking a full workday off, if I wanted to go to, if I had a doctor's appointment at 9 o'clock, I was gonna be gone for an hour, which shouldn't constitute not being able to work if I came back to work at 10 o'clock, is what we were trying to work out. And that's the way we agreed upon it, but it's just not, I don't believe it's written like that in the contract. We were trying to avoid, because most guys are gonna say, well, if I can't work at any, after that, and I'm losing my overtime, I might as well just not go back to work. We're trying to avoid them not coming back to work.
I think it's, what we were changing up was workday as opposed to calendar day.
Correct.
I think if we leave it as calendar day instead of full workday, that works. I mean, it's a full day. If you take a full day off,
Yes,
you can't work details that day.
Correct.
correct.
That's all we're saying, until
Yes.
the next day.
That's
The next
correct.
available
Right.
day. Okay.
That's correct.
We can clarify that.
Yeah,
And
that's
that's
where
not
we were.
contract language,
Right.
that's policy language. I see where the discrepancy is, so we can take care of that.
Maybe it's just something else to throw out there too, we can maybe look back again, and I know we talked about this, just something we can maybe help us get to a happy median also is going back to the vacation time and losing overtime. And getting paid straight time, I know we talked about this several years.
Oh, you
Just
mean
something- maybe just
vacation
something-
time
yeah.
counting as days,
Yeah.
hours worked?
Yep. So maybe just for especially for at least the 12-month employees, you know, who are full-time employees. It's not, they don't have those extra days off like everybody else does. It's just something to throw out there, maybe to think about again. While we're trying to come to this happy median again.
I think we were pretty firm on that last time. We weren't willing to go that direction, so.
It never can
I
hurt
think
to ask, right?
Yeah, I get it. I just say our position is definitely still status quo. You want to walk through what you've proposed? You proposed significant changes to 1711, which is your outside detail. We had proposed increasing it from 5250 to 55. We've been increasing this every year since I've been here. So this is up from when I started, it was $37. So now we're proposing it to be $55. You've added in sergeants at a different rate, and then subsequent years increases as well.
That's the lease rate, right?
One of the questions I have on that, and when you separate the sergeants from the officers, that has to be consistent with needing or requiring a supervisor on the detail, unless you guys want to eliminate sergeants from working lease details. Because the priority is going to go to the $55 an hour person or the lower rate. And then the sergeants, if they were to pick it up, it would be more of a mandate. So if you are not requiring a sergeant to work it, do you want to eliminate them from the pool?
I think that was the intention, was if the sergeant's required.
We need to add that language in
Has
there.
to
then.
look differently than this, then,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, so if we need, like we have basically on our thing is 5 officers, 1 sergeant.
Yep.
And I
That
believe
would have
that's
to be
kind of
added
the-
to this language if we're going to do that.
So
And I would probably guess that it would be up to still the hiring person if they were requesting a supervisor, or are we gonna have to put something in there?
No, if we're going to have that many people working, and I require a sergeant, sometimes there are times where I will hire the sergeant and make sure that they're working. And that might even be at an overtime rate. But if we build it into the leases, if it's something that's that big, I don't think right now we have any events that are that way, where we're working that many people. Most of them are school-based events, that you guys are getting the time and a half rate. I can't think of like off the top of my head, I can't think of one that's a lease-based where we're requiring supervisors to be at it.
I don't recall one either.
I'm good with that. I'm good with the 2.
Is there a cost to the district on a lease? I mean, besides the using
we
car and gas?
pass on the
and so-
cost to
Right,
whatever organization is leasing our facility, but we put those rates in, as you know, in 7/1. They go into effect at the beginning of every fiscal year. So having a variable rate based on who might do it is problematic and would result in a cost to the district. I guess I'm with Chief on saying that unless it's absolutely required that a sergeant goes there, why would we choose that? If we know we have to pay more and it's not technically a requirement that a sergeant works at duty, right?
Right, so if somebody leases a property and it needs 5 officers and 1 sergeant, I'm assuming you could pass, and you could pass that cost on to the person leasing, that you need, that.
As of right now, no, we wouldn't. And because what I'm saying is that when they sign a contract to lease from us, they're going to sign it with knowing, hey, this is the all-in rate that they're paying for, law enforcement to cover it, right? And that's what they're paying. And if it changes on us after that rate has been established, we own that cost. So.
Okay, thank you.
So, isn't it if you have 5 officers, you need a sergeant?
Typically, that's going to be the standard. If I need to have supervisors on scene, then I would do it. But like I said, what we have been doing is, if I require a supervisor, I've been paying for it out of our budget, not charging it to the lease, and that person's getting paid a little bit more, because most of those are time and a half events, whether it's a football game or like Muck Bowl, that kind of thing, that we're picking up the difference within the district, or within the department.
Our position on this would be status quo with or our proposal, which is $55 per hour.
Yeah, I don't want to fight that. That's good.
sergeant thing that
Huh?
they can fight in there. If that would,
Yeah, no, I'm not gonna
yeah,
fight.
that's the sergeant thing, if they want to fight that in there.
Yeah, I was just
that
going to
wouldn't
say,
be
is if you
us.
try to do the split
Yeah.
off, it's going to, my impression would be it's going to limit the opportunities for sergeants to work it.
Agreed.
Because the way that it gets paid, it's going to be coded a certain way, and it's going to be coded at the $55 an hour, whatever rate is agreed upon.
Yeah.
It's not going to be, different rates for different people.
Yeah, that's good. Won't mess with them.
Okay. I just wanted to add also, based on the applications we got, we did get 268 applications in 2024, according to our stats. I could tell you that it's hundreds and hundreds more that show an interest. It's a lot more. But our standards are really high, which they should be. We're dealing with children. So they, at my level, they get turned away before they even hit an oral interview or an application. Because I know, I work with major scope of leaders, and we have high standards. So we just, on some level, we shouldn't expect, we should expect to, folks expect to get paid accordingly as well. But
Well, I think that's a good thing. That's a lot of applications.
Yeah,
You know, so I do think that our department has, received a lot more attention since Chief Mooney's taken over with her team, her leadership team. And I think that we've added a lot of things that were, that make it more attractive. I think the 12-month position was something that really made a huge difference. So I'm glad to hear we have that many applications. I think, but I also do think that bringing them in when, bringing the right people in is just as important.
Sure.
So, yeah.
yeah, and I'm talking about certified officers, certifiable officers. No, thank you.
Right. You also had a proposal, I'll just go through it since I want to make sure we cover it, for holiday, an increase to holiday detail.
What number are you looking at?
That's 1711, looks like page 5. You had multiple years of increases to the outside detail rates. I believe you skipped one, though. I believe you skipped 2026 and have 2027. Or maybe you're just skipping from 2025 to 2027.
Page 6.
Saying that in 2027, our outside detail rate will be paid at the rate of $60.
That may just be a typo,
Yeah, it could be. We can get back to you on that.
Is that on?
unless it's a
Is that for
twin-
special holidays? Like,
No, just any.
I think that whole section needs some reworking because of the sergeant discussion we just had on sergeants. So I will say there also hasn't been a year, though, that we haven't increased that rate. It's not necessarily disagreeing that we can do a couple years out maybe, but I'd have to bring it back to the team for discussion. So maybe we can caucus once we're done working through all these, and we come back to you.
I have a question for clarification on 1712, the red line on that, the last part of that, that he or she may not be reassigned to another position or detail. So is that indicating that we can't assign them to work something else if they're already here, or they can't pick up another detail?
Looking at 1712?
1712. I think that's 12, no, 1713, sorry.
Okay. Yeah, we'll get back to you on that, too. We'll have to clarify on our end.
I think they're signing up is what it's supposed to mean is they're signing up for a specific detail. If you get there and it's canceled and then there was another detail that's available at the school that wasn't filled is kind of what I think that was.
It's avoiding like double dipping.
Correct.
That's how I read it too. So if you're canceled and you're still going to get your 3 hours, right, or with the scheduled length of the duty or the 3 hours, whichever is less, it says, then you can't go pick up another duty.
I think we want to work through that. I don't know
Yeah.
that this
I
is the
think
language that
I think
you
there's got to
want,
be some language that's got to be changed a little bit.
because you don't want to limit somebody from being
Correct.
able to pick something else up if they
And
want to. You
also-
just can't double dip on it.
Correct, and I
Okay.
think that also refers to if I pick up a basketball game and it got canceled and I got to the campus and there's another event going on that wasn't covered, do you get paid for both? You know, and that's kind of where I think one of the other issues, I've heard that's, or do you just pick up the other detail to cover the 3 hours?
You tell me what's right on that situation. That you're going to leave a detail vacant because the other one got canceled? I'm just throwing it out there. We can discuss it, but we need to clarify that language.
In the proposals, you had highlighted some sections related to the proposals that we had made on the attendance, attendance supplement and performance pay. Do you guys have any position on, or discussion or anything like that on our proposal?
Well, the biggest thing I've been hearing from it is one, you never give up something you got. We found that out before when we lost the step plan, years long before us. Some of you guys were here, but some of us weren't. But that's coming back now. We're looking to get a step plan back, and obviously there's resistance on your side. And now, again, if we look at the giving up the 165 and the supplement, how do we get it back? I mean, is there possible we can put it on, like we did the 1 year with the 165 and we put it off to we didn't pay it out for 1 year, and to work on the compression that we paid for out of the 165 money, we paid for part of the raise.
Our position on it was just that you get a one-time bump to your base salary for it in place of it, representing the cost. It would apply to all. You don't have to, you get something even if you don't qualify for the attendance supplement then. It increases over time, right? The equivalent's not there in the beginning, but over time it does increase. And I think just simplifies some of the, the amount of the different forms of compensation that officers receive.
A lot of the officers are believing that, that's their only longevity that they have, is the 165. So that's kind of one of the things that's holding them back from giving it up. And if you look at it on paper, I've had guys that will say that I got $1,000 for an attendance supplement for the year because I didn't call out. So I got my $250 per quarter, and then I got my 165 money, which was another, say, $1,600. So that's $2,600 that I'm getting to give up for $500.
Okay.
That's kind of how.
I really
they're
don't
looking.
know how much each person's getting.
And of course, and everybody's going to be, it's pretty much going to be the same if you're eligible for the 165 and the attendance supplement. Everybody gets the same amount in the 165, and everybody's going to get the same amount in the supplement.
Yeah, I guess I
So-
wasn't sure of how many of your officers are getting part of the performance pay.
So there's always that concern, but you're always going to have where the top's gonna fall off and the bottom is gonna be there, but they may just miss it. So I don't think that the amount changes that much from year to year. It may a couple $100, depending on how many people, but it's not really that much. And I think that's one of the concerns these guys are, is especially guys that have been here any length of time, is the longevity on it.
Chief Mooney, do you have any idea of how many people are eligible for that?
No,
You'd have to look.
pretty
Right.
much, I would say probably 95% of those that have 6 years or more are eligible to get it.
But you gave us a number too, though, of, I believe, 0.2%?
That's the attendance pay.
Okay, then
So we're
0.3%.
spending $60,000
Okay.
a year, basically,
So,
right?
and then 3% then was what you gave us for the
0.3%.
0.3, yeah.
Yeah. If it was 3%, you better jump on
Oh,
it, right?
yeah. 0.3%,
0.3%, because that's $100,000, basically, that's the equivalent of about 0.3%. And combined together, it was a 0.5% increase.
Yeah, and honestly, that's not even, the 0.5% is even close to what we make just on those two stipends,
Okay?
so.
Have no problem staying status quo. It was just an effort to try to eliminate some supplements and put more money towards base pay, that's all.
Now, if you want to up it a little bit,
No, we don't. It would go up, the spend would actually go up overall for the district if it was put in base pay, but as is, it doesn't go up. It's the same amount, so. Anything else you guys have that you want to discuss?
we'll discuss.
All right, maybe we could take a minute to caucus and then come back with, I don't know, say 15 minutes? Do we have rooms? Server A? Well, someone can stay in here if we're, you know. We could let you guys stay in here and,
Okay.
all right. So thank you for giving us some time. You know, we thought we might be able to come back here with something. We don't have any counters to anything today, so we will meet as a group ahead of our next session and try to get you anything that any progress we've made maybe before the session to make that more productive. So, all right. So thank you all for your time today. Have a great day. See ya.
You guys did
Not
great.
at all. You did fine, yeah.